Here's the thing. For everybody listening, don't make the same mistake the Bengals just did in any facet of your life.
People are going to get hurt. It's the hockey season. And if they want to make the deep run to the playoffs, they're going to need players. And Ben Hutton's a good defenseman that can help.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now, if Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
I was very tempted to just put defense.
What about the Jared Cook play on the sideline? And then Mason Crosby's 55-yard field goal or something like that. That was a good one.
Come on, Austin and I have been saying this ever since Joe Burrow got injured.
I just do not see Harden putting in the same amount of effort into each game. And I honestly believe that's why he hasn't won a championship yet.
That's a perfect name. What you said, name brand players. Like, it's not the great value Target brand toilet paper or whatever. It's the Charmin Ultra Strong.
I swear we didn't script that.
Fultz is injured and he really hasn't lived up to the potential of being the number one overall pick when he was selected by the Sixers.
Like you said, Ovechkin, he's getting older. He hasn't been playing as well as I imagined. He's one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, but he hasn't started off this season as hot as I would hope.
How is Joe Burrow going to get the ball to them if his butt is already on the ground and he finally decides who to throw to?
I don't really think the Dodgers are going to make the World Series this year. I feel like they'll make it to the NLCS.
And then I want to talk about the Fernando Tatis extension because that really surprised me. Because he's so young. You see the Chiefs beefing up their O-line, and then you have the Buccaneers beefing up their defensive line.
Ingrained in the life of Tom Brady and what winning actually looks like, I think will be a very good move for Bruce Arians and this Bucs organization.
Hi, I'm Jeff Allen, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our 58th episode. Make sure to check out our 57 episodes and our interviews. You can find out interviews on our YouTube channel. And I forgot to mention our next episode and our last episode, which you should definitely check out, which is where we did a play-in preview, which starts today, May 18th. So make sure to check that out before the games get started. And now, our long-awaited announcement for the next episode from yesterday is NFL teams that will surprise you next season. We're not saying we're thinking, except there are different tiers, but teams that will surprise you. And we're going to leave our confident picks for the very end, so you got to stay at all the way, or you can just forward to the very end and take guesses, but stay along for the whole episode. And I will let Austin start with and announce our not confident pick.
Yeah, so our not confident pick, but we are still we still think this will happen, is that the Denver Broncos will surprise and make the playoffs. This will be because of their defense improving and their additions during the offseason of more O-linemen and trying to help out whoever their QB will be next season. I believe that picking up Teddy Bridgewater, even if he isn't the starter next season, is a great move because it puts pressure on Drew Lock. And if he is a starting quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater is. I don't think that's a bad thing either because of the pressure that Drew Lock will put on him. That QB dynamic will definitely help both sides, and we are thinking that this will result in improved QB play. And also we are assuming that the wide receivers will stay healthy. Cortland Sutton and KJ Hamler and Jerry Jeudy and the rest of the crew will stay healthy along with Noah Fant, and their running back core will also remain with Melvin Gordon and also stay healthy. What do you think?
Yeah, big thing for me is Von Miller's coming back, and that means you get to have a terrifying duo for offensive lineman Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. They pick up Kyle Fuller from the Bears, who got cut because of cap. Then you get Patrick Surtain. They did lose AJ Boye, but I think those are some great additions, that even losing AJ Boye. And then I think they still have, I'm trying to remember their big star corner. Is Chris Harris Jr. left. I'll look up the corner right now.
I think you're thinking of the free safety Justin Simmons, who is a tremendous free safety and is one of the best safeties in the league.
Yeah, you're right. Just secondary Justin Simmons.
Yeah,
But then now you have two starting corners, in Kyle Fuller and Patrick Surtain. So but it all depends on the quarterback play,
yeah,
and
and
it's going to be very reminiscent of Super Bowl 50, in my opinion.
yeah, and I think the offense will be more dynamic than 2015 when they did win the Super Bowl, but and their defense will be a little bit worse as they don't have the lockdown corners of Akeem Talib and Chris Harris in their prime, and they won't have the D line with Demarcus Ware and the rest of the crew. But we do believe this is good enough to get them a 7 seed, and in 17 games, anything can happen. But I feel like we can move on to our first somewhat confident pick. These are picks that we feel like uh, that we are much more confident in happening, but we don't think are definite, engraved in stone, you could say. And our first one is that the Panthers will do surprisingly good and make the playoffs. This is on the back of Sam Darnold and Matt Rule's offense, along with Christian McCaffrey being healthy and DJ Moore and the rest of the offense uh, bringing in enough. And they also they drafted J.C. Horn. They've improved their defensive side of the ball, and we think this will be enough to push them into the playoff picture.
Yeah, speaking about the defense, that was a huge thing as the first whole draft of Matt Rule was defense, and they started to come on near the end. So that growth with the addition of JC Horn should really help them. And then their offense is the main thing because I think their defense can hold up. But if you just have such a bad offense, it's not going to help. And they're in a tough division. But if Christian McCaffrey stays healthy and Sam Darnold lives up to not even the full expectations of being the number third overall pick, but just being a first round drafted quarterback, and I'm sure Joe Brady will help a lot because he may just go to college and that may get Sam Darnold confident. And he has definitely a lot of good weapons. So that's why we're pretty confident, but like not completely, but much better than what we think about the Denver Broncos situation. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, so another person that I think has to be mentioned on the Panthers side of the on the Panthers team is Jeremy Chin. He was almost named rookie of the year last year, and he had 2 touchdowns to the defensive player on 2 fumble recoveries. He also had a pick and 5 pass deflections. As a rookie last year, he was outstanding. And unlike most sports where there's a second season drop off, football there doesn't normally seem to see that from defensive players, especially safeties, as they are moving freely, especially as a free safety. You're moving freely. You adjust to the ball. You make your own plays. It's hard to adjust to a safety who's really good. And I feel like if we saw like Tyrann Mathieu, Antoine Winfield, these guys are major impact players that help employ fear into the defense. I mean, the offense they're about to face. And I think that Jeremy Chin next year will take that next step. That'll really assist the passing side of the ball, especially in a division with Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. But I feel like we can
And
move
then
on. Okay.
one more thing, quick Austin is Terrence Marshall Jr. I think he will be a good addition, but I think we can move on. I just wanted to add that quickly.
Yeah. So the next team we have that we're somewhat confident in is our only surprisingly bad team, and this isn't bad because we think they're going to do worse than last season, but it's bad considering how much success they've had recently and the trend that they're on. We think that will halt and they will take a step back this year, and that's the Miami Dolphins. Tua is an unproven QB, and while we love what they've done, we think this year they're going to take a step back and have another season where they miss the playoffs.
Yeah. Tua, the Dolphins are great last year with Tua in some moments, but Brian Flores took a different approach than many of us have seen before. Uh, Very reminiscent of Roger Staubach, the Roger Staubach situation in Dallas, but not as switching on every play. But he would put Ryan Fitzpatrick in, Brian Flores, when Tua could not do it. And it's really because Tua was very hesitant when throwing. He was not as free of, or not as thoughtful or careless as Fitzpatrick. Careless is a little too tough, but Fitzpatrick is a gunslinger. and it works out most of the time, but sometimes it bites him in the butt. So Ryan Fitzpatrick not being there and helping Tua is what I think can halt this offense, because they have put a lot for Tua to learn, but it's might take some time, especially with Waddle, who's coming off a injury that we saw he was definitely playing through in the national championship. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to rebound off of. That his injury history. He may not be as confident as he was, and I think we're seeing that with his passing decisions. He's more hesitant, and he isn't really confident in his ability to move outside the pocket. He isn't taking the running role as much as we initially perceived, and I do think that's hindering his growth and the ability for this team to make the playoffs. We could see this team going 10-6 and missing the playoffs again, and we're not saying they're going to be terrible or have a losing record. However, we do think it would be surprising if they go 9-8 or 10-7 and miss the playoffs, and they that would be a setback for a team that just went 10-6 last year and was outstanding. And I would be surprised if they do make the playoffs. As I'm not confident in the Tua scheme. It's been a consistent issue, as the schemes was really different when they had Ryan Fitzpatrick in and they had Tua in, as Tua would really change the system, because Tua, he wasn't going to pass the ball as much and they'd run the ball more, but with Ryan Fitzpatrick playing, he would instill a different plan into the offense. He start throwing the ball down to Devontae Parker, and Parker, I think, vocally spoke about how he liked Ryan Fitzpatrick pushing the ball down the field more to him. And I do think if the wide receivers start to not like the system that they're running with Tua as the QB, I do think that could definitely hurt them in the long run and force them to miss the playoffs as we're predicting. Anything else?
And to your point, uh, the Dolphins have gone through offense coordinators a lot the past few seasons. They actually are doing a co-coordinators this season with George Godsey and Eric Studsville, which is another different approach. But because they fired the offense coordinator, to your point, so it's very difficult, as I'm against changing up the playbook in a one from year one to probably year three of a young quarterback, because Tua is in a very volatile situation right now, because you mentioned his injury history. Like, he has had some flashes, but he is not as a sure prospect as, let's say, Trevor Lawrence. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Any more thoughts?
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler. Their brain is very mobile. They can move, and whatever they see, whatever they learn, sticks in them for the rest of their career. It really affects their confidence throughout their career. It affects how much they want to move the ball. We saw this with David Carr, who's Derek Carr's brother and came into the league as a rookie, the first pick for the Texans, and as a QB. He's the most sacked quarterback in a season ever. And I definitely think that he can't be a bust when he's getting put on his butt every other down. And I think we can compare that to any other player who's young in today's game. You need to keep a consistent core around a player, especially when they're young, especially as a QB. And coaches are essential to a QB's growth. An offensive scheme needs to stay consistent for a QB throughout, like you said, first, I would say even 5 seasons, just to make sure that it is ingrained into their mind how to play the game. And if you do go into a new system, you can help adjust and maybe make some pickups along the way. But it will definitely be important for the QB throughout their young portions of their career to stay consistent so that they can learn the game the best way possible.
And then to your point, you mentioned a bad example of where it didn't turn out. I'm going to say a really good example that's most recent is Josh Allen. Josh Allen coming out of Wyoming, there are a lot of things like he has a high ceiling, but also could not be very good. And then just look at what he did this past year. A lot of people kind of said he could be an MVP candidate. I don't think he's there yet. I think he definitely is an MVP candidate this year. But just Sean McDermott was the head coach for the entirety of as long as Josh Allen has been playing, and then they surround him with weapons. So it's just a great great surroundings for Josh Allen, which have caused him to live up to his high potential.
Yeah, that's a great point. Much better example than mine, as it is more recent and is easier to compare. But I think we can move on to our first of our confident picks. These are picks that will happen. We can guarantee it. If we're wrong, don't add us, please. Uh, our first one is that the Patriots will be surprisingly good and make the conference championship game, presumably against either Kansas City or the Bills or the Browns or the Ravens. But we do think, under the assistance of head coach Bill Belichick and whoever their starting quarterback will be, I presume it will be Cam Newton, that they will make a push and make it to the conference championship. They're getting a lot of guys back from the COVID opt-out season, and I think that'll definitely help assure them a spot in the conference championship. What do you think?
Yeah, this has the outsider's opinions guarantee, but sometimes when you guarantee something, it's not always going to be right. But we're really confident in the Patriots. I know I am because of Bill Belichick, and we saw him do an un-Belichick thing this past offseason, which was he recognized the talent disparity. May that be because of the COVID opt-outs or bad drafting. He gets a ton of new players. Matthew Judon, Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, and then you, of course, Cam Newton. You also get Mac Jones, who I think is going to be the quarterback. Maybe I think it's going to be a thing to watch, but to me, Mac Jones just screams to me a guy that Bill Belichick loves. There are comparisons to Tom Brady, but I don't think there's never going to be another Tom Brady. But I think he'll be a good serviceable quarterback, and he has the talent around him. And then their defense, I think, is going to really take a step back. It took a step back, sort of secondary wise. Stephon Gilmore did not have the year I believe he wanted, so I think he's going to come back, and then that will really push it. Their defense and just Mac Jones doing what he did at Alabama, giving it to his playmakers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so another player we have to mention is Christian Barmore. I mean, you had him going in the first round, and he went to them in the second round. So I think that's a great addition. But I would start Cam Newton. The reason why is he's a proven QB in the past, and I honestly believe with these new additions that he can help prove that he is supposed to be the starter. If we are comparing him to Tom Brady did not start his first season, and whether it be because of him not being trusted by Bill Belichick his first year, and him only coming in his second season because of injuries to Drew Bledsoe, we'll have to see. But I would not start Mac Jones this year. Mac Jones is used to a plethora of great wide receiver and tight end and running back talent, which with the Patriots just do not have from the bottom to the top of the depth chart. But I think Cam Newton can really lead this team, and Josh McDaniels and the offensive coordinators can really help them out. Another thing, like you said, I feel like this defense feels that they were much worse than they should have been last year, and they will use that to help build confidence for their success this season. But I feel like
I think,
anything else?
yeah, I think Hightower was one of those opt outs.
He was. He was.
Okay, so just getting him back, which would be great. So they're definitely getting a lot of talent. Maybe the McCourty brothers. I think they opted out as well.
I don't think they did, unless one of them did, because I don't think Devin McCourty opted out. Maybe he did. I don't know.
I'll check that. But
Devin McCourty played last year.
okay.
Let me check Jason McCourty.
No, I think they both didn't play, but just
Oh,
a lot of
both
opt
played.
outs.
Both played all 16.
Okay.
16.
Okay. But Hightower is going to be a huge help, linebacker, and then Judon with pass rushing. But that's just one thing to mention because they were the most in the league with opt outs, which could conspire some conspiracy theories like the Belichick force people to go like, "Hey, don't opt out," so then we get a higher draft pick and I can get some good players to help us out. It's just a conspiracy theory, uh, one I'm not confident in, but a thing we are confident in is the Washington football team will be surprisingly good, and that does not mean just make the playoffs, but will make the conference championship. Austin, I'll let you give your reasons why.
Yeah, so we saw the other day, I think it was yesterday or the day before that, they picked up Bobby McCain to help assure their safety depth, and they also drafted a cornerback, and they really a linebacker, and they're really making sure that this is their season. I'm loving the moves that they're making, and Ron Rivera's crew definitely will be uh, a locomotive on the defensive side. Their D line is the best in the league, and their linebacking core and secondary is only going to get better. I like Curl, who's one of their safeties. I think he'll take the next step this season. Ron Rivera's been a proven head coach. He's made it to a Super Bowl before, and we definitely believe that he will make it to the conference championship this season. What do you think about the Washington football team?
And the thing that sticks out to the Washington football team, Alex Smith is no longer there, and he was their most proven quarterback the past year, but they picked up Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzmagic is moving to Washington. I prefer that nickname. And if he does what he did last season, this offense will do so much better because you have proven catch wide receivers in Terry McLaurin. They also just signed Curtis Samuel, which is a player that Ron Rivera had at Carolina, and they just picked up a wide receiver in the draft. But to me, I want to focus on Chase Young. To me, the defensive end is a position, and if you take them high in the first round, they're going to do great. But as they play, the better they become, in my opinion, because it takes some time to get used to the NFL. And we saw just how great Chase Young was last year. Imagine after a full year of maybe being in an NFL style weight room, just because using his past experience from Ohio State, but just being with Ron Rivera, learning more of the scheme, and I think we saw a glimpse of it in the division, the wild card, when Taylor Heineke, I'll get to him in a second, made that diving play. You saw Chase Young run up, which is the leadership. So I think his leadership is going to really push this defense to do even better, which is a key thing that we see pushing them into the conference championship. Because outside of the Bucks, and you can argue with the Packers if they have Rodgers, I'm a little skeptical with Rodgers of just facing that type of defense. But and then you have Taylor Heineke who could help out if Fitzmagic doesn't work out. Any thoughts on what I said?
Yeah, so I do think Chase Young will take the next step, and especially with a great defensive line on his team, I do think that'll assist in his uh, development. If he was just a one-man wrecking crew on the defensive line, I do feel like he could take a step back this year as he will face more doubles. But with Josh Allen and the rest of his defensive line, I do think it's going to be very tough for the rest of the for any team to double anybody on that defensive side. As it's going to be insane this season to see the development that the defensive line for the Washington football team will take. What do you think?
Yeah, just quick second. Did you say I may be blanking on their lineman, Josh Allen as defensive lineman?
Yeah, I think I messed it up. I'm trying to find his name. It's Jonathan Allen. That's what I meant to
Oh,
say.
okay.
Jonathan Allen,
Yeah,
Darren Payne, I know is another guy, and obviously Montez Sweat and Chase Young.
yeah. Can't forget those. Jonathan Allen from Alabama. We just mentioned Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle for the Patriots. Jonathan Allen is a guy that went to Alabama and he just wrecks havoc.
Yeah, we were talking about Josh Allen earlier, and I knew Josh Allen was another defensive player, but I got confused with the Allens. But it's okay. He's an
Yeah,
outstanding player, and so is Payne and Sweat and Young. Uh, it's going to be insane, and that's why we have them go into the NFC Championship game.
yeah, and maybe possible rematch between of that wild card round. Um, but yeah, it's all good. For I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Yeah, you did.
But so it will be great to watch. And sadly, I don't think the Cowboys will win the division because I think Washington will win the division again, and that will kind of give them some good seeding and then make it to the NFC Championship. But they're definitely a team that we have high aspirations for. Any closing thoughts?
No, but I'm excited to see when our predictions are correct.
Speaking of excitement, I just want to say this toward the end. I was very excited last night. Too bad Taylor Hearn couldn't play, but Willie Calhoun and Adolis Garcia set ruined Garrett Cole's day and Austin's day, I think. But the Boston Bruins kind of leveled it out, I think. Rangers beat the Yankees 5-1, so I'm in my Rangers gear, showing it off to Austin. But I got to take my wins as we win them, and then hopefully Taylor Hearn can play all again and then strike everyone out. But I digress. I just got to mention that because I don't get many wins from my teams against Austin's in the Packers and Cowboys. But next episode, we were talking about the NBA and doing a play-in review. Make sure to check out our preview. And that is it. Leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and check out our previous episodes. Thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.